Sometimes the chains forged by destiny are meant to be broken, and the wolves who chase you across worlds are the ones who'll either destroy you or set you free. The question is, can you tell the difference before it's too late? Rhiannon Ashford had exactly 48 hours before she became property. Not a wife, not a mate. Property. The marriage contract sat on her father's desk like a death sentence, ornate calligraphy spelling out terms that made her stomach turn. In exchange for military protection and trade agreements, Alpha Cornelius Ashford would deliver his eldest daughter to Vorian Blackthorn, the Alpha King of the Northern Dominion, to seal their bond in 3 days' time. She pressed her forehead against the cold window of her childhood bedroom, watching the Ashford pack grounds below. Wolves moved with purpose through the morning fog, preparing for the grand ceremony. Her ceremony. Her funeral, more accurately. 24 years old, and she'd lived her entire life preparing for this moment, groomed to be the perfect political bride since she could walk. "You should be honored," her mother had said just yesterday, adjusting the fitting for Rhiannon's wedding gown. "The Alpha King chose you out of hundreds of eligible females. Do you understand what this means for our pack, for your sisters?" What it meant was that Rhiannon's life, her dreams of becoming a pack physician, her secret love of human literature and medicine, everything that made her who she was, would be stripped away the moment Vorian Blackthorn bit into her neck and completed the mating bond. She'd visited his territory once for the formal courtship. The Northern Dominion was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. And Vorian? He was every inch the conquering king, powerful, ruthless, with eyes like frozen silver that seemed to see through walls. He'd spoken to her exactly twice during the week-long visit. Once to inform her of his expectations for a queen. Silent, obedient, fertile. And once to tell her she smelled pleasant. That was the extent of their relationship before she was expected to bind her soul to his for eternity. The worst part? Everyone acted like she should be grateful. The younger wolves whispered enviously about her luck. The elders nodded approvingly at her father's political maneuvering. Her 2 younger sisters, Margot and Celine, looked at her with something between pity and relief that they hadn't been chosen instead. Only her grandmother, Elowyn, had looked troubled. "Some bonds are meant to strengthen us," she'd said cryptically 3 nights ago. "Others are meant to test whether we're strong enough to break them." Then she'd pressed a small pouch into Rhiannon's hand. Inside was enough money to survive in the human world for months, along with forged identification papers that identified her as Riley Ashton, human. "Just in case," Elowyn had whispered. "Just in case you need to remember that you're more than what they've decided you should be." Rhiannon pulled that pouch from her hiding spot now, weighing it in her palm. 48 hours. She looked at her reflection in the window. Dark auburn hair that her mother insisted on keeping long because the Alpha King prefers it that way. Green eyes that she'd been taught to keep downcast in the presence of dominance. A body that had been critiqued, measured, and evaluated like livestock. This was supposed to be her fate. This was supposed to be an honor. So why did it feel like dying? The Ashford Pack estate was a gilded cage, and Rhiannon had never felt the bars more acutely than in these final 48 hours. Everywhere she turned, someone was watching, preparing, ensuring their valuable asset didn't depreciate before delivery. Her father had even assigned guards to her door, ostensibly for her protection, but she knew better. They were there to make sure she didn't run. Miss Rhiannon Dreven, her father's beta and head of security, caught her in the hallway that afternoon. He was a mountain of a man, scarred from decades of warfare, with eyes that missed nothing. "Your father requests your presence in his study. The Alpha King's envoy has arrived early." Her heart sank. Early? Vorian wasn't supposed to arrive until the wedding day itself. She followed Draven through the marble corridors, past walls lined with portraits of Ashford Alphas spanning 2 centuries. Every single one of them had built their legacy on the backs of strategic marriages. She was just the latest sacrifice to the family's ambition. Her father's study smelled of whiskey and leather. Cornelius Ashford stood behind his massive oak desk, every inch the commanding alpha despite his graying hair. Beside him stood a man Rhiannon recognized from her visit to the Northern Dominion, Malak, Vorian's second-in-command and closest friend. Malak was tall and lean, where Vorian was broad and powerful, with dark hair pulled back in a severe style and eyes that held cruel amusement. He assessed Rhiannon the way one might evaluate a horse at auction. "She's thinner than I remember," Malak said without preamble. "The Alpha King prefers his females with more substance." Rhiannon's nails dug into her palms, but she kept her face neutral. This was her life now, being discussed like an object while standing right there. "She's been under stress with the preparations," her father said smoothly, as if stress was the problem and not the fact that she was being sold. "I assure you, she's in perfect health. Our pack physician has verified her fertility and—" "I'm standing right here," Rhiannon interrupted, the words escaping before she could stop them. The room went silent. Her father's eyes flashed dangerously. One did not interrupt an alpha, especially not a daughter who'd been raised to know better. Malak's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Spirit. The Alpha King did mention you had some. Don't worry, little wolf. He knows how to train it out." He pulled a velvet box from his jacket. "I'm here to deliver this. The Alpha King wanted you to have it before the ceremony." Inside the box was a collar, not a necklace, not jewelry, a collar, made of white gold and inlaid with diamonds, beautiful and horrifying in equal measure. A tag dangled from it, engraved with a single word: Vorian. "It's tradition in the Northern Dominion," Malak explained, watching her reaction with those cold eyes. "The Alpha King's mate wears his collar from the moment of bonding until death. It's quite an honor. There are queens who would kill for such a privilege." "How lovely," Rhiannon managed, her voice barely steady. "Please tell the Alpha King I'm overwhelmed by his generosity." "You'll tell him yourself soon enough. He's decided to arrive tomorrow instead of waiting for the ceremony. He wants to ensure his bride is suitable." Malak's pause made it clear what suitable meant. Vorian would likely claim her before the wedding, ensuring she couldn't back out. After Malak left, her father rounded on her. "You will control yourself," he said, voice low and dangerous. "You will smile. You will submit. You will be grateful for this opportunity. Do you understand what this alliance means? The Northern Dominion has the largest military force in the region. With Vorian as our ally, no pack would dare challenge us. Your sisters will make advantageous marriages. Your mother will have the status she's always deserved. And you?" He stepped closer. "You get to be a queen. Most females would give anything for that privilege." "Most females aren't being sold like breeding stock," Rhiannon said quietly. The slap came fast, splitting her lip. She'd expected it. Her father had always been quick with his hands when challenged. "You are dismissed," he said coldly. "And you will wear that collar to dinner tonight. The entire pack needs to see that you belong to the Alpha King now." Rhiannon fled to her room, tasting blood. Belong. As if she was a possession to be owned. She looked at the collar on her dresser where she'd thrown it. The diamonds caught the light, sparkling like stars. Beautiful chains were still chains. That night at dinner, she wore the collar. Every wolf in the dining hall stared, some with envy, some with pity. Her mother beamed with pride. Her sisters looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. And Rhiannon felt the weight of it around her throat like a noose, getting tighter with each breath. Tomorrow, Vorian would arrive. Tomorrow, she would have no choices left, unless she made one tonight. Midnight found Rhiannon in the one place she'd always felt safe, her grandmother's cottage at the edge of the pack grounds. Elawan lived separately from the main house by choice, in a stone cottage covered in climbing roses that somehow bloomed even in winter. The pack elders whispered that Elawan had magic in her blood. though no one said it loud enough for the alpha to hear. I was wondering when you'd come, Elowen said, opening the door before Rhiannon could knock. Her grandmother looked ancient and ageless simultaneously, with silver hair that still held streaks of the auburn she'd passed to Rhiannon and eyes that seemed to hold centuries of secrets. Inside, the cottage smelled of herbs and old books. Elowen guided Rhiannon to the kitchen table, where tea was already steaming in 2 cups, as if she'd known exactly when her granddaughter would arrive. "You're going to run," Elowen said. Not a question, a statement of fact. Rhiannon's hand went to the collar still locked around her throat. She'd tried to remove it, but it required a key she didn't have. Is it that obvious? Only to someone who knows what to look for. Your mother sees a dutiful daughter preparing for her wedding. Your father sees a valuable asset about to pay dividends. But Elowen reached across the table, covering Rhiannon's hand with her own. I see a caged wolf finally deciding she'd rather die free than live in chains. Tears burned Rhiannon's eyes. She'd held them back for days, refused to let anyone see her break. But here, with the only person who'd ever truly seen her, they fell. "I can't do it, grandmother. I can't let him claim me. I can't spend my life as property, producing heirs and smiling while my soul dies. But if I run," she swallowed hard, "Father will come after me. And when he finds me, he'll lock me up until the wedding. Or worse, he'll let Vorian punish me himself." "Your father will come after you, yes," Elowen agreed. "But there are places wolves cannot easily follow. The human world has its protections. Iron, certain herbs, crowded cities where our kind cannot shift without exposing ourselves." She stood, moving to a cabinet that looked ancient. From it, she pulled out several items: a key, a bundle of dried herbs, and a leather journal. "The key fits your collar," Elowen said, placing it in Rhiannon's palm. "I stole it from Malik's coat while he was busy insulting you in your father's study." Rhiannon stared. "How did you—" "I'm old. People forget that old wolves can still be dangerous." Her grandmother's smile was sharp. "The herbs are wolfsbane, iron filings, and mountain ash. Scatter them at thresholds. They won't stop a determined wolf, but they'll slow them down, cause pain if they try to cross. Buy you time." She pushed the journal across the table. It was old, the leather cover worn smooth. "This belonged to your great-great-grandmother, Isabeau. She was like you know, arranged to marry an alpha she didn't love. But unlike you, she went through with it, spent 60 years in a bond that slowly destroyed her. Before she died, she wrote down everything she wished she'd had the courage to do, including detailed maps and contacts in the human world, safe houses, people who help our kind when we need to disappear." Rhiannon opened the journal with trembling hands. The first page was written in elegant script. "To the granddaughter who has my spirit, I hope you're braver than I was." "There's something else you need to know," Elowen said, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Something your father never told you. Your mother wasn't always Ashford Pack. She was Northern Dominion originally, one of Vorian's father's pack members." Rhiannon's head snapped up. "What?" "She was arranged to marry someone else, but your father stole her away. It caused a war between the packs that lasted 3 years. The only reason it ended was because both alphas died in the final battle, and the new leaders decided to sue for peace." Elowen's eyes held something fierce. "Your mother gave up everything to be with your father. Her family, her pack, her identity. She remade herself as an Ashford wolf. And now? She's so desperate to belong, to prove her loyalty, that she's willing to sacrifice her own daughter to seal an alliance with the very pack she abandoned." The revelation hit Rhiannon like a physical blow. Suddenly, so much made sense. Her mother's desperate need for status, the way she pushed Rhiannon toward perfection, the cruel irony that she'd escaped an arranged bond only to force her daughter into one. "Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand that running is in your blood. Your mother did it for love, and regretted it when that love turned cold. You have the chance to run for yourself, for your freedom, for the life you want to live. Alawan gripped her hands tightly. But you need to know what you're up against. Vorian Blackthorn is not a wolf who accepts defeat. If you run, he won't just send trackers. He'll come himself. And when he finds you, because he will find you eventually, you need to be ready to face him. Not as a frightened bride, but as a wolf who chose herself. Rhiannon looked down at the journal, the key, the herbs. What if I'm not strong enough? You're Isabeau's blood. You're my granddaughter. You're stronger than you know. You've just never had permission to find out how strong. Elowen stood, pulling Rhiannon up with her. She led her to a mirror on the wall. Look at yourself. Really look. Rhiannon saw a wolf wearing a collar, eyes red from crying, lips still split from her father's blow. But behind the fear and pain, she saw something else. A spark. Defiance. The human world will be strange and difficult, Elowen warned. You'll be alone. You'll have to hide what you are. But you'll be free to decide who you become. That's worth any price. When should I go? Tonight. Now. Vorian arrives at dawn. Once he's here, you'll never escape. Alawan pressed a final item into her hands. A cell phone. Small and anonymous. There's one number programmed in it. A friend of Isabeau's daughter. She runs a network that helps wolves escape bad situations. When you're ready, call her. She'll guide you. Rhiannon clutched the items to her chest. Will I ever see you again, if the fates allow it? Alawan pulled her into a fierce hug. But even if you don't, know that every night when the moon rises, I'll be thinking of you, proud of you, loving you. I love you too, grandmother. Then go, run, and don't look back. Rhiannon made it 3 miles before the first howl split the night. She'd left through her bedroom window at 2 in the morning, using the climbing rose trellis she'd scaled 100 times as a teenager. The guards never noticed. Why would they? Who would run the night before becoming a queen? She'd shifted once she reached the forest boundary, her wolf form lean and built for speed rather than strength. The bag containing her human clothes, money, and Isabeau's journal was strapped to her back in a waterproof carrier she'd prepared weeks ago, just in case she ever found the courage to use it. Just in case had become now. Her wolf's paws ate up the ground, heading south toward the human city of Millbrook, about 30 miles away. She'd studied the maps in Isabeau's journal a dozen times, memorizing the route. Once she reached Millbrook, she'd shift back to human, catch a bus to the coast, and disappear into one of the major human cities where a wolf could lose herself in the crowd. The plan was solid, simple, it should have worked. The howl came again, closer this time. Her father's voice, unmistakable in its authority, calling the pack to hunt. They'd discovered her missing. She'd hoped for at least a few more hours, but someone must have checked on her. Probably her mother, coming to make sure she was resting well before her big day. Rhiannon pushed harder, her wolf's lungs burning. She was fast, but trackers were trained for endurance. They'd catch up eventually. Unless she reached human territory first. Wolves couldn't afford to be seen shifting or chasing each other through human spaces. Too much risk of exposure. She crossed into neutral territory, the buffer zone between packlands and human civilization, just as 3 wolves burst from the trees behind her. She recognized them by scent, Dreven and 2 of his best trackers, Soren and Vikram. They were gaining. Rhiannon's wolf made a split-second decision. She veered hard left, away from the straight path to Millbrook and toward the river. If she could cross the water, it would slow them down, break her scent trail. It was a risk. The river was swollen from recent rains, running fast and high. But staying on land meant certain capture. She hit the water at full speed, the cold shocking her system. The current grabbed her immediately, pulling her downstream. Her wolf paddled frantically, using the momentum to help carry her toward the far bank. Behind her, she heard splashing as the trackers followed. But then, something changed. Another howl, different from her father's. This one was deeper, more primal, carrying an authority that made even her father's commanding voice seem weak in comparison. Every wolf within hearing distance felt it in their bones. A call from an apex predator, from royalty. Vorian. He'd arrived early, and he knew she was running. Terror gave Rhiannon's wolf new strength. She clawed her way up the far bank, shook off the water, and ran. But now she could hear them. 5 wolves, 6 more joining the hunt. And above them all, one set of massive paws hitting the ground with the weight of absolute power. The Alpha King was hunting his escaped bride. Rhiannon burst from the forest into the outskirts of Millbrook just as dawn began to lighten the sky. Houses appeared, widely spaced at first, then closer together. She found a small park with public restrooms and shifted behind the building, her body screaming from the rapid transformation. Her hands shook as she pulled on clothes, jeans, a sweater, the jacket that would hide the collar she still wore because she hadn't had time to remove it. The phone Elowen had given her showed 5:47 in the morning, early enough that the streets were mostly empty except for a few early morning joggers and workers heading to opening shifts. She forced herself to walk calmly toward the bus station, just another young woman out early. But she could feel them, the pack, circling the edges of town, unable to shift and come after her directly, but not willing to lose her trail. And Vorian. Gods. She could feel him specifically, like a thunderstorm about to break. His presence pressed against her awareness through some bond she didn't understand. They weren't mated yet. He shouldn't be able to sense her like this, unless the collar did more than she'd thought. The bus station was a small brick building that smelled like coffee and diesel. Rhiannon bought a ticket for the 6:15 express to Portland, paying cash like Isabeau's journal had instructed. She sat in the waiting area, hood up, trying to be invisible. 6:10, 5 more minutes. The door opened. Rhiannon's heart stopped. A man walked in. Not Vorian, but unmistakably a wolf. He was young, maybe 30, with the build of a warrior and eyes that swept the room with tactical precision. He wore human clothes, jeans, and a leather jacket, but he moved like a predator. His eyes locked onto Rhiannon. She stood, ready to run, but he held up one hand in a gesture of peace. He crossed to her slowly, non-threateningly, and when he spoke, his voice was pitched low enough that only wolf hearing would catch it. "I'm not with your father's pack," he said. "My name is Cassian Reed. I'm with the network. Elowen called me 3 hours ago, told me to watch for a young woman at this station. I'm here to help." "How do I know you're telling the truth?" He pulled out his phone, showed her a text message. Auburn hair, green eyes, wearing a collar she can't remove, brave but terrified. Help her. It was from Elowen's number. Rhiannon's relief was so intense, she nearly collapsed. They're here, the pack, and the Alpha King himself. Cassian's expression darkened. "I know, I can feel him. Which is why we need to move fast. That bus isn't going to save you. He'll have wolves waiting at every stop. We need to get you somewhere he can't follow." "Where?" "I have a safe house in Portland, but it's temporary. The Alpha King has resources you can't imagine. Eventually, he'll find it. You need to decide what you want, to keep running forever, or to disappear so completely that even he can't find you. Disappear how? New identity. New life. New city so deep in human territory that wolves never go there. It means leaving behind everything. Your family, your name, any chance of returning to wolf society. You'd be human for all intents and purposes. Is that what you want?" The 6:15 bus pulled up outside, air brakes hissing. Through the window, Rhiannon saw more wolves gathering across the street. Not approaching, not yet, but watching. Waiting. And then she saw him. Vorian Blackthorn stepped out of a black SUV, and even in human form, he was devastating. Tall and broad-shouldered, with silver eyes that found her through the bus station window with unerring accuracy. He wore a black suit like he was attending a business meeting rather than hunting down an escaped bride. His expression was unreadable, but she felt his fury like a physical thing. He started walking toward the station. He had maybe 60 seconds before he reached the door. Yes, Rhiannon said to Cassian, not taking her eyes off Vorian. I want to disappear. Cassian grabbed her hand. Back exit, now. They ran. Cassian's car was parked in the alley behind the bus station, a nondescript gray sedan that could have belonged to anyone. They'd barely gotten inside when Vorian appeared at the alley's entrance. For a frozen moment, his silver eyes locked with Rhiannon's through the car window. Then Cassian floored it. The chase through Millbrook's early morning streets was something out of a nightmare. Vorian didn't follow in the SUV. He shifted, right there in the middle of a human town, his massive black wolf form shattering every rule of their kind. He was easily twice the size of a normal wolf, with silver eyes that glowed even in daylight. Ancient power made manifest. Jesus, Cassian breathed, watching the rearview mirror. I've heard stories, but seeing him. The Alpha King ran through the streets like a force of nature, scattering the few early morning pedestrians. Rhiannon knew what this meant. Vorian was so powerful, so confident in his authority, that he didn't care about exposure. He'd deal with the human authorities later. Right now, nothing mattered, except reclaiming what he considered his. Hold on, Cassian said, and yanked the wheel hard. They skidded into a narrow side street, then another, weaving through Millbrook's older district where the buildings were close together and the streets too narrow for easy pursuit. But still, that massive black wolf kept pace, leaping over obstacles, taking corners at impossible speeds. They were heading for the highway when Cassian suddenly jerked the car into a parking garage. What are you doing? Rhiannon gasped. We'll be trapped. Trust me, he drove up 3 levels, parked in a corner, and killed the engine. Seconds later, the black wolf appeared at the garage entrance. Vorian shifted back to human form, nude, magnificent, and absolutely enraged. He stood at the entrance, breathing hard, those silver eyes scanning the garage. Why isn't he coming in? Rhiannon whispered. Iron reinforcement in the concrete. Old building, predates modern construction codes. The whole structure is laced with iron support beams. It won't stop him, but it'll cause him significant pain to enter. He's calculating whether you're worth it. They watched as Vorian's hands clenched into fists. He took one step into the garage and flinched, a reaction so small most humans would have missed it. But Rhiannon saw the way his jaw tightened, the flash of pain in his eyes. The iron was affecting him. He took another step, then another, each one costing him. He's coming anyway, Cassian said, starting the engine again. The pain doesn't matter to him. You matter to him. We need to move. But Rhiannon was transfixed, because Vorian had stopped again, and now he was looking directly at their car, though they were 3 levels up and blocked by dozens of vehicles. He couldn't possibly see them, but somehow he knew exactly where she was. Rhiannon, he called, his voice carrying through the concrete and steel with unnatural clarity. I know you can hear me. Don't respond, Cassian urged. Don't engage. But how could she not? This was the wolf she'd fled from, the king who'd claimed her like property. Yet the way he was standing there in pain, naked and vulnerable in a human parking garage, not caring who saw him just to speak to her. You think you're running from me? Vorian continued, his voice rough. You think I'm the enemy? I understand. Your father didn't tell you the truth. About our arrangement. About why I chose you. Don't listen, Cassian said. It's manipulation. I'm not here to drag you back, Vorian said, and something in his tone made Rhiannon believe him. I could have caught you in the forest. My wolves could have surrounded you before you reached town. I let you run, Rhiannon. Because I needed to know. Know what? The words escaped before she could stop them. Cassian cursed, but Vorian's expression shifted, something almost like relief crossing his features. I needed to know if you felt it too. The pull, the recognition. You're not just an arranged bond, Rhiannon Ashford. You're my mate, my true mate. The moon herself marked you for me. Rhiannon's hand went to her chest, where, beneath her sweater, a mark had appeared 3 nights ago. She'd thought it was a rash, stress manifesting physically, but it was in the shape of a crescent moon, silver against her skin, the mark of a fated bond. No, she whispered. That's not possible. Fated mates are rare. And you said, in your territory, you told me I was a political arrangement. Because I didn't want to scare you, didn't want to pressure you with something you might not feel yet. Fated bonds manifest differently for everyone. I felt the pull the moment I saw you 6 months ago, but I could see you felt nothing. So I waited. I played the distant king, the cold politician, because I thought giving you time might let the bond develop naturally for you too. He took another step forward, and this time she saw him actively fighting the pain. Sweat beaded on his forehead. But he didn't stop. I was wrong, he continued. I see that now. I played my part too well. Made you fear me instead of trust me. And now you're running from the one wolf who would die before letting anyone harm you. His eyes, those impossible silver eyes, held something she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. Come back with me. Not as an obligation, not as property, as my mate, my equal. Let me prove to you that what the moon has written in the stars, I'll honor with every breath in my body. Rhiannon's hand shook as she touched the collar around her neck. You gave me this. A collar. Like I'm something to be owned. Pain flashed across Vorian's face. I know. I didn't choose it. It's tradition. Northern Dominion law requires the Alpha King's mate to wear the bonding collar. But I'll break that tradition. I'll rewrite every law. No wolf of mine will ever be collared again. Just come back. He's good, Cassian muttered. I'll give him that. But don't fall for it. The fated mate story is the oldest trick in the book. Except it wasn't a trick. Rhiannon could feel it now, the thing she'd been pushing down for months. That strange pull toward Vorian, the way her wolf had recognized something in him, even when her human mind rebelled. The mark on her chest that had appeared out of nowhere. The reason she'd been so terrified of this marriage. Not because she felt nothing, but because she felt too much and didn't trust it. The moon had chosen for her, and she'd run anyway. I can't, she said, loud enough for Vorian to hear. Even if you're telling the truth, I can't go back. Your world, your traditions, the way female wolves are treated. I can't be part of that. I won't. Something shifted in Vorian's expression. The vulnerability hardened into determination. Then I'll come with you. Cassian actually laughed. Right. The Alpha King is going to abandon his territory to chase after one female into the human world. Yes. Vorian's eyes never left Rhiannon's. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And Rhiannon realized, with a jolt of shock, that he meant it. Cassian managed to get them out of the parking garage through a back exit, while Vorian was dealing with 2 police officers who'd responded to reports of a large wolf and a naked man in downtown Millbrook. By the time the Alpha King had compelled them to forget what they'd seen and retrieved his clothes from the SUV, Cassian and Rhiannon were already on the highway heading west. Safe house is in Portland, Cassian explained, driving just under the speed limit to avoid attention. We'll hole up there for a day or 2, let things cool down, then move you somewhere permanent. I'm thinking Seattle or Vancouver, big cities where you can disappear into the human population. But Rhiannon was barely listening. Her mind kept replaying Vorian's words. True mate. The moon chose you. I'll come with you. She touched the mark on her chest, feeling it warm beneath her fingers. It had appeared the day after she'd visited the Northern Dominion. She'd assumed it was anxiety manifesting physically, but now. Her phone, the one Elowen had given her, buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her slide to accept. Rhiannon Ashford. The voice was female, cold as winter ice. You've made a terrible mistake. Who is this? Nora Blackthorne. Vorian's sister, the one who's going to have to clean up the mess you've created by running. Cassian glanced over, mouthing, "Hang up." But Rhiannon was frozen. The Northern Dominion is the largest territory on the continent, Nora continued. Do you understand what that means? It means constant threats from smaller packs looking to take what we have. It means political alliances that require careful maintenance. It means my brother needs to appear strong, unshakable, in complete control. And you know what damages that image? Having his fated mate publicly reject him and flee into human territory. I didn't know about the fated mate thing, Rhiannon said. He never told me. Because you never gave him the chance. You walked through his territory like a prisoner counting down to execution. You never asked him about himself, his plans, what he wanted from a partnership. You just assumed the worst and decided to play the martyr. The words hit harder than Rhiannon wanted to admit, because they were partially true. She'd been so caught up in her own fear and resentment about the arranged marriage that she'd never considered Vorian might have his own struggles with the situation. 3 packs have already sent envoys, Nora continued, asking why the Alpha King can't even control his own mate, questioning his strength. And you know what happens when an alpha appears weak? Challenges. Wars. Wolves die, Rhiannon, because you were too proud to have an honest conversation before running away. That's not fair, Rhiannon said, but her voice wavered. I'm not responsible for how your world works, for its traditions and hierarchies, and the fact that strength is measured by domination. No? Then who is? You think you can just opt out? Reject everything about our kind and go live among humans who would fear and hate you if they knew what you really were? Nora's laugh was bitter. My brother is a good male, Rhiannon. Not perfect, but good. He spent 10 years trying to reform Northern Dominion traditions, trying to give lower-ranking wolves more rights, more say in pack decisions. Do you know how many death challenges he's faced from traditional alphas who think he's making the pack soft? 17. He's killed 17 wolves who tried to take his territory because he dared to suggest that maybe Omegas shouldn't be treated like servants. Rhiannon's chest tightened. She hadn't known that. Hadn't known anything about Vorian except what she'd assumed. The collar, Nora said, her voice softening slightly. I know you hate it. I would too. But it's not what you think. In the Northern Dominion, the Alpha King's collar is made from the first silver his wolf ever claimed in battle. It's meant to be a symbol of protection. The king saying this wolf is under my personal guard. Harm her and face me. Yes, it's archaic. Yes, it needs to change. But Vorian had that specific collar made for his true mate over a year ago, before he even knew who you were. He's been waiting for you his entire life. Stop, Rhiannon whispered. Just stop. Come back. Talk to him. If you still want to leave after that, I'll help you disappear myself. But at least give him a chance to... Rhiannon hung up. Don't listen to her, Cassian said immediately. That's what they do. Make you feel guilty for wanting freedom. Make it seem like you're being unreasonable for not wanting to be owned. But doubt had taken root. They reached the Portland safe house by midday. It was a modest apartment in a building that catered to transient workers, the kind of place where no one asked questions. Cassian did a sweep for tracking devices or magical surveillance while Rhiannon collapsed onto the worn couch. Rest, Cassian said. I'm going to make some calls, arrange the next step. We'll move you in 48 hours, somewhere even I don't know the location until the last minute. Can't track what doesn't exist. After he left, Rhiannon sat in the silence of the unfamiliar apartment. She should have felt relieved, free. Instead, she felt hollowed out. She pulled out Isabeau's journal, flipping through the pages. Her great-great-grandmother's story was there in careful detail. The arranged marriage. The alpha who'd treated her like property. 60 years of slow suffocation until she'd finally died, having never lived a single day for herself. But there was an entry near the end that made Rhiannon pause. Sometimes I wonder if I was wrong. If I'd fought harder, spoken up more, demanded to be seen as an equal rather than accepting my role in silence, would he have changed? Or was he always going to be what he was and my only choice was endurance or escape? I'll never know. And that's what haunts me most. Not that I stayed, but that I never gave him the chance to be better. Rhiannon closed the journal. Outside the apartment window, Portland sprawled below her. Human territory, safety, freedom. But was she running toward something or just away? Her phone buzzed again. This time, a text from an unknown number. The Alpha King has declared formal pursuit. He's coming to the human world. Alone. He stripped himself of title and pack protection to follow you as an equal. Every wolf in the Northern Dominion thinks he's lost his mind. Maybe he has. Or maybe you're worth it. Nora. Rhiannon stared at the message. Stripped himself of title? That was impossible. An Alpha King couldn't just abandon his territory. It would leave the Northern Dominion vulnerable to attack. Unless he'd appointed a regent. Unless he'd literally given up everything to prove a point. To chase her. To give her the choice he'd never offered before. Gods, she whispered to the empty room. What have I done? 3 days passed in the Portland safe house. 3 days of hiding, waiting, and slowly unraveling. Cassian came and went, bringing food and news. The news was never good. Vorian had indeed entered human territory. He'd been spotted in Seattle, then Vancouver, then back down the coast toward Portland. He was tracking her, but methodically, not aggressively, like he had all the time in the world. He's hunting you, Cassian said grimly, but he's being smart about it, not drawing attention, not triggering any human alerts, just following the scent trail we left. How long until he finds this place? A week, maybe less. We need to move you soon. But Rhiannon couldn't shake the feeling that running was wrong. The mark on her chest had grown warmer over the past 3 days, pulsing softly in rhythm with her heartbeat. And her dreams. Gods, her dreams. Every night, she saw Vorian. Not the cold, distant king she'd met in the Northern Dominion, but something else. A wolf running through moonlit forests, calling for his mate. Silver eyes filled with longing and frustration and something that looked like heartbreak. On the 4th night, Rhiannon woke from one of these dreams to find the apartment dark and Cassian gone. A note on the kitchen counter. Supply run. Back in an hour. Stay inside. She should have listened. Instead, she found herself drawn to the window, looking out at Portland's nighttime sprawl. The moon was full, huge and silver in the clear sky. And her wolf wanted out, wanted to run, wanted to answer a call she could feel thrumming through her bones. Before she could think better of it, Rhiannon was out the door and running through the city streets. She shifted in an alley, her russet-colored wolf emerging fully for the first time since she'd fled her father's territory, and the moment she did, she felt it. Him. Vorian was close, very close. She should have turned back. Instead, she ran toward the pole. She found him in Forest Park, the massive urban wilderness that bordered Portland. He was in wolf form, that huge black predator with silver eyes, standing in a moonlit clearing, waiting, like he'd known she would come. They faced each other across 50 feet of grass and moonlight. 2 wolves, 2 hearts beating in sync, 2 souls marked by the same moon. Vorian shifted first, returning to human form. He stood naked in the moonlight, making no move to cover himself, showing vulnerability. I'm not going to force you, he said quietly. I want you to know that. If you run again right now, I'll let you go. I'll return to the Northern Dominion and dissolve the marriage contract. You'll be free. Rhiannon shifted too, standing before him in her human skin. The mark on her chest was glowing now, silver light pulsing through her sweater. She pulled the fabric down, revealing the crescent moon over her heart. It's been burning for 3 days, she said. I can feel you, everywhere, all the time. Is this what a fated bond feels like? For me, it's been 6 months of this. Every moment, every breath. Vorian's hands clenched at his sides, like he was physically restraining himself from reaching for her. I thought I could wait, court you properly, let you come to care for me naturally. But the bond, it doesn't wait. It just grows stronger until it's all you can think about. Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? You already thought I was a tyrant. If I'd claimed we were fated mates, you would have assumed I was lying to manipulate you into submission. He took a careful step forward, and maybe you would have been right to think that. Because I don't know how to do this, Rhiannon. I've been an alpha since I was 16. I've spent my entire adult life commanding wolves, making decisions, being obeyed. I don't know how to be an equal partner. I don't know how to share power. But I want to learn. If you'll teach me. The honesty in his voice cracked something inside Rhiannon's chest. I don't know how to be a queen, she admitted. I don't know how to lead or command respect. I just wanted to be a healer, to help wolves, not rule them. Then heal me, Vorian said, and there was such raw need in his voice that it made her chest ache. Heal what's broken between us. Show me how to be the mate you need instead of the king everyone expects. He was close enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, those impossible silver eyes that held centuries of lonely power. I'm scared, she whispered. What if the bond is just biology? What if it's forcing us together and we don't actually choose each other? Then we'll fight it together. We'll figure it out together. But Rhiannon, he raised one hand, hovering near her face but not quite touching, asking permission. Please stop running. I can't chase you anymore. It's killing me. She saw it then, really saw it. The exhaustion, the pain, the way his hands trembled slightly. The Alpha King had stripped himself of everything, power, pack, protection, and followed her into the human world. He'd made himself vulnerable in a way alphas never did, all for her. The bond between them pulsed, warm and insistent, not controlling, just there, a connection waiting to be accepted or rejected. Her choice. Finally, her choice. Rhiannon made it. She closed the distance between them and kissed him. The world exploded into silver light. The bond snapped fully into place, no longer a tentative thread, but a blazing rope of connection that tied their souls together. Rhiannon gasped against Vorian's mouth as power flooded through her. His power, her power, their power combined into something neither had possessed alone. When they broke apart, they were both glowing. Silver light pulsed beneath their skin, and Rhiannon understood with sudden crystal clarity. This was what a true fated bond looked like. Not ownership, not control, but perfect balance. Two wolves making each other stronger. I'm still angry, she said breathlessly. About the collar. About how I was never asked, just told. About traditions that treat females like property. Good, Vorian said, pulling her close. Stay angry. Use it. Help me change everything that's broken about our world. Be my conscience, my balance, my equal in every way that matters. This doesn't fix everything, Rhiannon warned. We have months, maybe years of work ahead. Learning how to be partners. Unlearning old patterns. Fighting wolves who won't accept change. I know, but we'll do it together. He touched the collar still locked around her neck. With a gesture and a pulse of power, it shattered into pieces, falling away like the prison it had always been. No more chains. I swear it. As the pieces of silver collar hit the ground, Rhiannon felt something shift inside her. Not just the bond, but her own power, uncurling like a flower opening to sunlight. She'd always been told she was only valuable as a political asset, but standing here, connected to her true mate, she felt anything but weak. She felt like the storm that had been building her entire life had finally broken free. They couldn't stay in Forest Park. Cassian had undoubtedly realized Rhiannon was missing, and would be frantically searching. More importantly, Vorian's presence in Portland wouldn't stay secret long. Word traveled fast among wolf networks, and the Alpha King abandoning his territory to chase a mate into human lands was the kind of gossip that spread like wildfire. "My hotel," Vorian said, pulling on the clothes he'd stashed nearby before shifting. "It's secure. We can talk there." "You have a hotel?" Rhiannon was still putting on her own clothes, her hands shaking slightly from the bond's intensity. "How long have you been planning this?" "Since the moment you left me standing in that parking garage. I knew you weren't coming back willingly, so I made arrangements. Nora is acting as regent in my absence. The Northern Dominion won't fall apart without me for a few weeks. A few weeks." The casual way he said it, like dismantling centuries of tradition, was simple. Vorian's hotel turned out to be a penthouse suite in downtown Portland, with enough security to house a diplomat. The moment they entered, Rhiannon felt the wards, magic woven into the very walls, designed to alert Vorian to any supernatural presence. "You came prepared," she observed. "I'm an alpha. Preparation is what keeps me alive." He moved to the suite's kitchen, starting coffee like this was a normal morning, rather than the aftermath of a life-altering bond. "We need to talk about what happens next." "I'm not going back," Rhiannon said immediately. "Not to my father's pack. Not yet. I wasn't going to suggest it. Actually, I was going to suggest we don't go back to the Northern Dominion either, not immediately." That surprised her. "Why not?" Vorian poured 2 cups of coffee, bringing one to her. His hands were steady now, the trembling gone. The bond had settled something in him too. "Because you were right. About the traditions, the hierarchies, the way power operates in our world. I've been trying to change it from within for years, but it's like trying to redirect a river with my bare hands. Every reform I make gets fought by traditionalists. Every step forward comes at the cost of a challenge or a political compromise that undermines the original goal." He sat across from her at the dining table. "But you walked away. You proved it's possible to choose a different path, and I think," he paused, choosing words carefully, "I think we need to do this together. Build something new, not just reform the Northern Dominion, but create an alternative. An alternative to what? To the entire pack structure. What if there was a place where wolves could go if they didn't fit the traditional hierarchies? Where omegas weren't servants, where alphas weren't automatically in charge, where the moon bond was honored without becoming a prison." Rhiannon's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. "You want to start a new pack?" "I want to start a revolution," Vorian corrected. "But it starts with a pack. A safe haven. Somewhere wolves like you, wolves who question, who want more, who refuse to accept that birth designation determines worth, can find refuge." It was ambitious, possibly insane, definitely dangerous. Every established pack would see it as a threat. Where would we even begin? Her phone rang. "Cassian." She answered on speaker. "Thank the moon." Cassian's relieved voice came through. "I've been searching for hours." "Are you safe?" "I'm with Vorian," Rhiannon said. "It's okay. We've bonded. Literally." Silence. Then, the fated mate thing was real? Very real. Shit. A pause. Okay. Okay, that changes things. "But you should know, your father is mobilizing. He's claiming you were kidnapped by the Alpha King against your will. He's calling for a territorial council to demand your return." Vorian's expression darkened. "Cornelius is smarter than that. He knows I can prove the bond. This is about saving face. If his daughter chose to leave, it makes him look weak. But if she was stolen, then he's the victim," Rhiannon finished. "And you're the villain." "There's more," Cassian continued. "The network has been getting inquiries. Lots of them. Young wolves asking about the female who escaped an arranged bond. Asking if it's possible for them too. You've become a symbol, Rhiannon. Whether you wanted to be or not." Rhiannon looked at Vorian. "The alternative pack you mentioned." It's not theoretical anymore, is it? It's already starting. It started the moment you ran, Vorian agreed. We just need to give it structure, purpose, protection. He raised his voice toward the phone. Cassian, you said the network is getting inquiries. How many? 23 in the last 4 days. And that's just the ones willing to risk reaching out. There are probably hundreds more watching, waiting to see what happens next. Can you arrange a meeting? Somewhere secure. I want to talk to them. All of them. You want to meet with wolves who are literally trying to escape pack structures, while every traditional alpha on the continent is watching to see what the Alpha King does next? Cassian sounded incredulous. That's revolution? Rhiannon interrupted. He said it himself. This isn't about us anymore. It's about every wolf who's been told they're less than what they are. She felt the rightness of it settling into her bones. The fear was still there, of course it was. But beneath it, something stronger. Purpose. The same thing that had driven her toward medicine, toward healing, was now driving her toward this, healing the broken system itself. 3 days, Vorian said decisively. Cassian, spread the word through your network. Any wolf seeking an alternative to traditional pack structure should come to Portland. I'll arrange a neutral meeting ground. After Cassian hung up, promising to do what he could, Rhiannon turned to Vorian. You realize this is going to start a war. Wars are started by those desperate to maintain power they're losing. We're just offering a choice. He reached across the table, taking her hand. The bond hummed between them, warm and steady. But yes, there will be resistance, probably violence. Are you sure you want this? Rhiannon thought about her father's hand across her face, the collar locked around her throat, years of being told she was only valuable as a bargaining chip. Then she thought about the 23 wolves who'd reached out to Cassian, young wolves like her, trapped by traditions they never chose. I'm sure, she said. Let's build something better. Over the next 3 days, they planned. Vorian used his contacts, wolves who owed him favors or shared his vision for reform, to spread word carefully. Cassian worked his network of wolves who'd escaped bad situations. And Rhiannon reached out to the one person she knew would understand. Grandmother, my darling girl. Elowen's voice came through warm and knowing. I felt your bond snap into place 3 nights ago. The whole moon-blessed bloodline felt it. You're more powerful than you know. Moon-blessed bloodline? Rhiannon's heart stuttered. What are you talking about? Oh, child. Did you think your mother was just an ordinary Northern Dominion wolf? She was moon-blessed, a direct descendant of the first wolves touched by moon magic. It's why Vorian's father wanted her, why your father stole her away. She had power in her blood, and she passed it to you. That mark on your chest isn't just a mate bond. It's awakening what was always sleeping inside you. Rhiannon looked down at her chest, where the silver crescent moon now gleamed permanently. What kind of power? The kind that builds bridges between wolves. The kind that heals bonds broken by violence and tradition. You were never meant to be just a queen, Rhiannon. You were meant to be a catalyst. For change. For evolution. For everything our kind needs but has been too afraid to reach for. After hanging up, Rhiannon told Vorian everything. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing more thoughtful with each revelation. It makes sense, he said finally. I felt something when I first saw you. Not just the mate bond, but something older, deeper, like recognizing something I'd been searching for my entire life. What does that make us? Dangerous, Vorian said with a slight smile, to everyone invested in keeping things the way they've always been. But also, he pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Exactly what our world needs. The meeting was set for the abandoned warehouse district on Portland's waterfront, neutral ground, easy to defend, large enough to hold however many wolves showed up. Rhiannon expected maybe 30 or 40. Over 200 wolves came. The warehouse was packed with wolves from dozens of different territories, all united by one thing. They wanted something different than what they'd been born into. Young Omegas tired of servitude. Betas seeking recognition beyond their middle rank status. Even a handful of alphas who'd grown disgusted with traditional power structures. Rhiannon stood before them, Vorian at her side, and felt the weight of their hope like a physical thing. "Thank you for coming," she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I know many of you risked everything to be here. Some of you left your packs without permission. Some of you are technically rogues now, without pack protection. That takes courage." "We heard you escaped an arranged bond," a young Omega female called out, "that you said no to the Alpha King himself. Is it true?" "Yes. And no." Rhiannon glanced at Vorian. "I ran from what I thought was a prison. But what I found was a choice, the chance to build something new with someone who respects my agency. That's what we're offering here. Not an escape from pack life entirely, but an alternative to the hierarchies that tell us who we must be based on what we were born as." Vorian stepped forward. "I'm not going to stand here and pretend I'm not an alpha, that I don't carry traditional power and privilege, but I'm willing to learn a new way, to build a pack where designation doesn't determine worth, where leadership is earned through wisdom and service, not just fighting prowess, where Omegas have as much say in decisions as Alphas." Murmurs rippled through the crowd, skeptical, hopeful, afraid to believe. "Why should we trust you?" A male beta stood, arms crossed. "You're still the Alpha King. You still benefit from the system we're trying to escape." "You shouldn't trust me," Vorian said bluntly. "Not yet. Trust has to be earned. That's why I'm proposing a council structure. Any wolf who joins this pack gets a vote in major decisions. No single alpha, including me, can override the collective will. We succeed or fail together." "That's not how packs work," an older alpha said, shaking his head. "Without clear hierarchy, there's chaos. Wolves need structure, need to know their place." "We know our place," Rhiannon said, her voice carrying across the warehouse. "We're told it every day. Omegas serve, betas follow, alphas lead. But what if we're more than our designations? What if we could choose our place based on our abilities and desires rather than having it dictated by birth?" The mark on her chest began to glow. She hadn't intended it, but the passion in her words triggered something. Silver light pulsed through her skin, and suddenly every wolf in the warehouse could feel it. The moon-blessed power flowing through her veins. Ancient, undeniable. "Some of you may know the old stories." Alawan's voice came from the back of the warehouse. Rhiannon's grandmother stepped forward, her own skin glowing with the same silver light. About the moon blessed. Wolves touched by the goddess herself, given the power to see what we could be instead of what we are. They disappeared centuries ago, hunted by those who feared change. But they're returning now, and they're offering you a choice. 3 more wolves stepped forward, their skin glowing silver. Then 5 more. 10. 20. All across the warehouse, hidden moon-blessed were revealing themselves. Wolves who'd kept their power secret for fear of persecution, now standing together. "We're not asking you to follow us blindly," Rhiannon said, looking at the sea of odd faces. "We're asking you to build something with us, a pack that honors the old ways but isn't imprisoned by them, where every wolf has worth, where power is shared, where no one is forced into bonds they don't choose." "It's treason," someone whispered. "It's evolution," Vorian countered. "Every species adapts or dies. We're choosing to adapt." The warehouse doors burst open. Cornelius Ashford strode in, flanked by 24 warriors. Rhiannon's father looked like the alpha he was, powerful, commanding, furious. Behind him came representatives from 6 other traditional packs. "This gathering is illegal," Cornelius announced. "Under territorial law, wolves cannot congregate in numbers exceeding 50 without alpha permission. You're all in violation. Disperse now or face consequences." "Territorial law," Vorian said calmly. only applies within established pack territories. This is neutral ground. Human-owned. Your laws don't reach here. You think hiding behind human property laws will protect you? Another alpha stepped forward. Marcus Ironwood, one of the oldest and most traditional pack leaders on the continent. You're destroying everything our kind has built, encouraging young wolves to abandon their packs, reject their duties. This ends now. You're right, Rhiannon said, surprising everyone. This ends now. The era of treating wolves like property, of forcing bonds and maintaining hierarchies through fear, it ends. You can't stop change by threatening us. There are too many who want something different. Then there will be war, Cornelius said flatly. He looked at his daughter with something like disappointment. I gave you everything. Status, power, a bond with the Alpha King himself. And you throw it back in my face for this? This fantasy of equality? You gave me nothing I wanted, Rhiannon said, her voice steady, and took everything I was. I'm taking it back, and I'm helping others take back what was stolen from them too. Sentimental nonsense, Marcus spat. Wolves need hierarchy. Without it, we're no better than rogues. Violent, unstable, dangerous to ourselves and humans alike. Then let us prove you wrong, Vorian said. Give us 1 year. We'll establish our pack, demonstrate that a different structure can work. If we fail, if chaos erupts, then you can say I told you so. But if we succeed, he looked at the gathered traditional alphas. If we succeed, you'll have to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, the old ways aren't the only ways. And if we refuse, then you'll have to fight 200 wolves willing to die for the chance to be something more than their birth designation. Vorian's eyes glowed silver. Is that really the battle you want? The standoff stretched. Rhiannon could feel the tension, every wolf in the warehouse ready to shift and fight if necessary. Her father's warriors had their hands on weapons. The moon-blessed were glowing brighter, power building. This was it. The moment that would determine whether their revolution ended before it truly began. Then, surprisingly, it was Marcus Ironwood who spoke. 1 year, he said grudgingly. But there are conditions. You establish your pack in neutral territory, not within existing pack lands. You don't actively recruit from other packs. Wolves must come to you of their own accord. And if there's a single incident of violence or chaos attributable to your new structure, we shut you down. Permanently. Vorian looked at Rhiannon. Through their bond, she felt his question. Your choice. Is this what you want? She looked at the 200 wolves who'd risked everything to be here. At the moon blessed coming out of hiding. At the possibility of something better. We accept your terms, Rhiannon said. Her father's face twisted with something between rage and grief. You're no daughter of mine. No, Rhiannon agreed quietly. I'm my own wolf now, and so can anyone else who wants to be. They called it Moon Shadow Pack, built on neutral territory in Oregon's coastal mountains, far enough from human cities to avoid exposure, but close enough to access modern amenities. The first few months were chaos. 200 wolves from different backgrounds trying to build a functioning society without traditional hierarchy was like herding cats who could literally eat each other. But slowly, impossibly, it began to work. The council structure Vorian proposed evolved into something more sophisticated. Every wolf got a vote, yes, but they'd also created circles of responsibility based on skills rather than designation. Rhiannon led the healing circle, medicine, conflict resolution, emotional support. An Omega named Saskia, who'd trained as an architect before being forced into domestic service by her birth pack, led infrastructure. A Beta named Torsten, who had a gift for organization, managed resources and supply chains. Vorian did what he'd never been allowed to do as Alpha King. He listened, advised, shared power, fought only when absolutely necessary to protect the pack. And slowly, the suspicious wolves who joined out of desperation began to trust that this new way might actually sustain itself. 6 months in, 3 more packs dissolved their traditional structures and merged with Moonshadow. 9 months in, they'd established a healing center that served wolves from any pack, regardless of designation or political affiliation. A year in, they'd opened a school where young wolves learned everything from combat to poetry, where Omega pups weren't automatically tracked into service roles and Alpha pups weren't automatically groomed for leadership. The traditional packs watched, some with hostility, some with grudging respect, a few with barely concealed envy. "We did it," Rhiannon said one night, standing with Vorian on the cliff overlooking their territory. Below, the pack was gathering for the full moon run. Over 400 wolves now, and more came every week. "We actually built something that works." "You built it," Vorian corrected, pulling her close. "I just learned to follow your lead." "Liar, you fought harder than anyone to make this happen, because you showed me it was possible." He kissed her temple. "I was so trapped in what an alpha was supposed to be, I forgot what it meant to just be a wolf. Thank you for reminding me." The Moon-Blessed had become teachers, using their abilities to help other wolves understand and develop their own unique powers. Elowen ran a program for young Omegas, teaching them that their empathy and emotional intelligence were strengths, not weaknesses. The power dynamic was shifting, slowly but inevitably, across the entire continent. Not everyone was happy about it. Marcus Ironwood came himself to deliver the message 3 days before Moonshadow's 1-year anniversary. "The territorial alphas are calling a grand council," he said, sitting across from Vorian and Rhiannon in the pack's council chamber. "Your year is almost up. They want to formally assess whether your experiment has succeeded or failed." "And what's your vote?" Rhiannon asked. The old alpha was quiet for a long moment. "When I was young, I had a sister, brilliant mind, natural strategist, should have been a leader, but she was Omega, so she spent her life in the kitchens, her talents wasted. She killed herself at 30, unable to bear the weight of being invisible." His eyes met Rhiannon's. "I think about her when I watch what you've built here, about what she could have been in a place like this." "So my vote?" He stood. "My vote is that the old ways have already lost. We just haven't admitted it yet." After he left, Vorian took Rhiannon's hand. "Are you ready? For the Grand Council? They're going to put us on trial, essentially. Make us defend every decision, every deviation from tradition." "Let them," Rhiannon said. "We have nothing to hide. And if they shut us down," she smiled, "we'll just start again somewhere else. You can't kill an idea whose time has come." The Grand Council met in neutral territory, the same warehouse where Moonshadow had begun. Every major pack sent representatives. The room was divided, traditional alphas on one side, progressive leaders, and Moonshadow representatives on the other. For 3 days, they debated, examined records, heard testimonies from wolves who'd thrived in Moonshadow's structure, and from those who'd struggled with the lack of clear hierarchy. The traditional alphas pointed to every conflict, every difficulty, as evidence that hierarchy was necessary. The progressive side countered with Moonshadow's achievements, 0 forced bonds, lowest violence rates of any pack on record, innovations in healing and education spreading to other territories. On the 3rd day, Cornelius Ashford stood to speak. Rhiannon hadn't seen her father since the warehouse confrontation. He looked older, harder. "My daughter betrayed her pack," he said, voice carrying across the chamber, "rejected her duty, abandoned her family. She chose herself over the greater good." He paused, and she was right to do so. Shocked silence. "I spent 40 years building the Ashford pack's reputation," Cornelius continued, "making strategic alliances, maintaining power. And I thought that was leadership. But watching Moonshadow this past year, watching wolves choose to stay rather than being forced to remain, watching young wolves develop talents I would have crushed in my own territory." He looked at Rhiannon. "I was wrong. About what makes a pack strong. About what leadership means. About what my daughter was worth." Rhiannon felt tears sting her eyes. The Grand Council should approve Moonshadow Pack as a legitimate territory, Cornelius said. And the rest of us should start learning from their example. Before we lose an entire generation of young wolves to something we were too stubborn to provide ourselves. The vote was close, but it passed. Moonshadow Pack was recognized. Legitimate. Protected under the same territorial laws as any traditional pack. That night, they celebrated, 400 wolves running under the full moon, howling their joy to the stars. Rhiannon ran beside Vorian, their wolves in perfect sync, the bond between them stronger than any chain had ever been. 2 years after Moonshadow's founding, Rhiannon received an unexpected visitor. Margot and Celine, her younger sisters, arrived at the territory's borders asking for asylum. They were both facing arranged bonds of their own, following in Rhiannon's original footsteps, but unlike their sister, they'd heard about alternatives. "Father is furious," Margot said over tea in Rhiannon's home, a modest cabin she shared with Vorian, who'd insisted on building it themselves rather than claiming some grand alpha residence. "But he won't stop us. He signed the papers releasing us from the Ashford Pack." "He's changed," Celine added, "started making reforms, asking Omegas for input on pack decisions, disbanded the enforcer program that basically terrorized lower-ranking wolves. It's slow, but," she smiled at Rhiannon, "you did that. By leaving, by building this place, you showed him what was possible." Rhiannon thought about the girl she'd been 2 years ago. Terrified, convinced she had no choice, wearing a collar that symbolized everything wrong with their world. Now she wore a necklace Vorian had made her, a silver moon on a delicate chain, with an inscription on the back. Freely given, freely chosen, forever cherished. "Welcome to Moonshadow," Rhiannon said, hugging her sisters. "You'll love it here." The healing center had become Rhiannon's greatest pride. She'd finished her medical training, something she'd always dreamed of but never thought possible, and now ran a clinic that served any wolf who needed help, regardless of pack affiliation or ability to pay. She'd recently started a program for traumatized wolves, those escaping abusive packs or forced bonds, helping them heal from psychological wounds that ran deeper than any physical injury. One patient was Cassia, one of the wolves who'd tormented others in traditional packs. She'd arrived 6 months ago, broken and desperate, fleeing a bond with an alpha who'd beaten her daily. Rhiannon could have turned her away, could have reminded her of the cruelty she'd witnessed in the old systems. Instead, she'd helped her heal, because that's what the new way meant. Forgiveness, growth, becoming more than what you'd been. "I don't deserve your help," Cassia had said during one of their sessions. "Probably not," Rhiannon agreed, "but healing isn't about deserving, it's about needing, and you need help. So here I am." Now Cassia worked in the healing center too, helping other survivors, turning her pain into purpose. Vorian had changed too. The ruthless Alpha King, who'd once solved problems with violence and dominance, now spent his days mentoring young wolves, teaching combat that emphasized defense and strategy over brute force. He'd relinquished his claim to the Northern Dominion entirely, naming Nora as the legitimate alpha. She'd continued his reforms, transforming the Northern Dominion into something closer to Moonshadow's structure. "Do you ever regret it?" Rhiannon asked him one night as they lay in bed, the bond between them a warm, constant presence. "Giving up being king?" "Every day," Vorian said honestly. Then he smiled. "For about 30 seconds when I wake up and remember how much simpler it was to just command rather than discuss. And then I remember what I got in exchange, and I wouldn't change it for anything." "What did you get?" "You. US. The chance to build something that matters instead of just maintaining power." He kissed her. "The chance to be a wolf instead of just a king." The annual Moonshadow Gathering had become a continental event. Wolves from every territory came to see what they'd built, to learn, to question, to challenge. Some came as skeptics and left as converts. Others came looking for hope and found community. This year, over 1,000 wolves attended. The gathering included workshops on non-hierarchical leadership, healing practices, conflict resolution, education reform. Rhiannon gave a keynote speech about trauma recovery. Vorian led a session on power sharing for alphas. Young omegas taught classes on emotional intelligence. Betas discussed strategy and logistics. It was everything they'd dreamed of, and it was just the beginning. On the final night of the gathering, as the full moon rose, Rhiannon stood before the assembled wolves and told a story. The story of a young wolf who'd been so afraid, she'd fled into the human world rather than accept the life laid out for her. Who'd been chased by a king and found a partner instead. Who'd been told she was only valuable as a political asset and discovered she was moon-blessed. Who'd thought she was running away but was actually running toward everything she was meant to be. Some of you know that story because you lived versions of it yourselves, she said. You were told you were less than, told to accept your place, told that change was impossible, but you chose differently. You chose yourselves. You chose us. And together we're proving that wolves can be more than what birth designation declares. We can be whoever we choose to become. The gathered wolves howled their agreement, the sound echoing across the mountains like a declaration of independence. Later, Vorian found her standing on their usual cliff, looking out at the territory they'd built together. Thinking deep thoughts? He asked, sliding an arm around her waist. Thinking about how far we've come, how far we still have to go. She leaned into him. There are still territories where omegas are treated like servants, where forced bonds are normal, where questioning the hierarchy means exile or death. Then we keep building, keep offering alternatives, keep showing them a better way exists. Vorian turned her to face him. But Rhiannon, we've already won. Maybe not everywhere, maybe not yet. But here, in Moonshadow, in the hearts of every wolf who chose change over tradition, we've won. The rest is just time. She kissed him, deep and grateful and full of the love that had grown from that explosive bond into something richer, something chosen every day, not just felt. Thank you, she whispered against his lips. For what? For following me, for changing, for building this with me, for being brave enough to give up a kingdom to find something better. Thank you for running, Vorian replied, for refusing to accept what everyone told you was inevitable, for showing me that real strength isn't dominating others, it's having the courage to be vulnerable, to change, to grow. Below them, the pack settled in for the night, 400 wolves and growing, a revolution in progress, a new way being born, and above them the moon watched over it all, silver and eternal and approving. 5 years after Moonshadow's founding, Rhiannon and Vorian were invited to speak at the Continental Wolf Summit, a gathering of every major pack leader on the continent. What had started as a radical experiment was now mainstream enough to demand attention from even the most traditional alphas. The summit was held in neutral territory, a massive conference center that had been specially warded to allow wolves to gather without human detection. Representatives from 73 packs attended. 5 years ago, most of them would have voted to disband Moonshadow. Now, 42 of those packs had adopted at least some of Moonshadow's structural reforms. Rhiannon stood before the assembly and saw faces she recognized. Marcus Ironwood, now openly advocating for progressive change. Her father Cornelius, who'd transformed the Ashford pack into something his daughter could actually be proud of. Nora Blackthorne, who'd made the Northern Dominion into a beacon of reform. And dozens of young alphas, betas, and even omegas. Because yes, omegas were now allowed at pack leader summits, another change Moonshadow had pioneered. 5 years ago, Rhiannon began. I ran away from my own wedding. I was terrified, desperate, and convinced I had no other choice. I thought I was alone in wanting something different. But I wasn't alone. There were hundreds, thousands of wolves who wanted the same thing, who were waiting for someone to prove that change was possible. She looked at Vorian, who stood beside her not as an alpha, but as her equal partner. What we've built in Moonshadow isn't a destination. It's a roadmap, proof that wolves can choose their own paths. That designation doesn't have to determine destiny, that leadership can be shared, that bonds can be freely chosen, that power is more than dominance. We're not claiming we've perfected anything, Vorian added. Moonshadow still struggles. We still have conflicts. We still make mistakes. But we face those challenges together, as equals, and we're better for it, stronger for it. The question isn't whether change is coming, Rhiannon said. It's already here. The question is whether you'll be part of shaping that change, or whether you'll be swept away by it. Because the young wolves, your children, your Omega Pack members, your frustrated betas who see their talents wasted, they're watching, and they're making choices about whether to stay in packs that confine them or seek out territories where they can flourish. After the speech, dozens of pack leaders approached them with questions. How do you handle disputes without alpha authority? How do you maintain security without a traditional enforcer structure? How do you prevent chaos when everyone has equal say? Rhiannon and Vorian answered each question patiently, sharing what they'd learned. But they also made it clear. There wasn't one perfect model. Each pack would need to find its own balance between structure and freedom, tradition and innovation. The key was being willing to try. That night, they walked through the summit grounds, watching wolves from different packs mingling in ways that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. An Omega from a traditional territory discussing healing techniques with a Moonshadow moon blessed. A conservative alpha listening thoughtfully to a beta explain collaborative decision-making. Change spreading like ripples across a pond. We're going to have another pup, Rhiannon said suddenly. They already had one daughter, Luna, who was 3 years old and showed every sign of being moon-blessed like her mother. I took a test this morning. It's positive. Vorian stopped walking, joy spreading across his face. Another pup? Are you happy? I'm terrified, he admitted, and completely overjoyed. Just like I was with Luna. Just like I am every day I wake up next to you. He pulled her close. This world we're building, it's for them. For Luna and this new pup and every young wolf who deserves better than what we had. They're going to change everything, Rhiannon said, one hand on her stomach where new life was growing. The next generation, raised in packs where they have choice, where their designation doesn't limit them, they won't even remember the old ways. Some will call that loss, Vorian said, the death of tradition, and some will call it freedom, the birth of something better. Rhiannon smiled. Let them debate. We have work to do. 6 months later, Rhiannon gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, both healthy and perfect. They named them Ash and Ember, for the old world that had burned away and the new one rising from its ashes. The day they brought the twins home, Elowen came to visit. Her grandmother was ancient now, her hair pure silver, but her eyes still held that knowing spark. She held each twin, whispering blessings in the old tongue, and when she handed them back, she smiled. You did it, my darling girl. You broke free of chains no one else could see. You chose yourself when everyone told you that was selfish. You built something that will outlast us all. We built it, Rhiannon corrected. You, me, Vorian, every wolf who chose change. It was never just one person. No, Elowen agreed. But it started with one person brave enough to run. And sometimes, that's all it takes to start a revolution. One brave soul who says no more and means it. Years passed. Luna grew into a strong young wolf with her mother's healing gifts and her father's strategic mind. Ash and Ember developed their own unique abilities. Ash could sense emotions with startling accuracy, while Ember had a gift for bringing wolves together, mediating conflicts with wisdom beyond her years. Moonshadow grew to over 1,000 wolves. 10 more territories adopted similar structures. Forced bonds became rare rather than normal. Omegas started holding leadership positions. The Moon-blessed came fully out of hiding, their gifts recognized as valuable rather than threatening. And on clear nights when the moon was full, Rhiannon would stand on her cliff, their cliff, with Vorian beside her, and watch their pack run free. Wolves of every designation, running together as equals, playing, hunting, living without fear. Do you ever think about that night? Vorian asked, when you climbed out your bedroom window and ran? Every day, Rhiannon admitted. I think about how scared I was, how certain I was that I'd be caught and punished, how I had no idea what I was running toward, only what I was running from. And now I know I wasn't running from you. I was running toward us, toward this, toward the life we built together. She turned to face him, this wolf who'd given up a kingdom to follow her into the unknown, toward freedom. In the distance, a young Omega wolf howled, not in submission or fear, but in pure joy. Others joined, creating a symphony of voices that spoke of hope, of choice, of change, finally, permanently taking root. The female who'd escaped became the catalyst who'd changed everything. The arranged bond became a true partnership. The old ways began their slow transformation into something better. And the moon, eternal witness to wolfkind's evolution, shone down on it all with approval. What now? Vorian asked, echoing a question he'd posed 5 years ago. Rhiannon smiled, watching their children play in the moonlight with packmates who'd never know what it meant to be limited by birth designation. Now we keep building, keep changing, keep showing every wolf who needs to hear it that they have a choice, that they always had a choice. Some of us just needed to see someone else make it first. Think we'll succeed? Really change the whole continental wolf structure? We already have, Rhiannon said. One pack at a time, one wolf at a time, one brave choice at a time. That's how revolutions happen. Not all at once, but gradually, until one day you wake up and realize the world isn't what it used to be, that it's become something better. Vorian pulled her close, the bond between them stronger than ever. 5 years of daily choice, daily commitment, daily love, building into something unbreakable. I love you, he said, for running, for letting me catch you, for showing me what real strength looks like. I love you too, Rhiannon replied, for following, for changing, for building this life with me. Below them, Moonshadow Pack settled in for the night. Above them, the moon watched over her blessed children. And between them, the future they were creating together, spread out like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. The wolf who'd been underestimated had become the leader who inspired. The arranged bond had become the partnership that transformed. The tradition that imprisoned had become the change that liberated. And the lone wolf who'd run into the darkness had found her pack, her purpose, and her power. Most importantly, she'd proven something every wolf needed to hear. That destiny wasn't written in the stars or determined by birth. It was chosen. Daily, courageously, defiantly chosen by those brave enough to believe they deserved better. And hope, once awakened in the hearts of wolves willing to fight for it, could never be suppressed again. The revolution had begun with one wolf's escape, but it would be completed by thousands choosing to follow, choosing freedom, choosing change, choosing themselves. And that choice, echoing across territories and generations, would reshape their world forever.